All right, episode 8 of The Fighter and the Writer. I'm Chris Mannix. He is Sergio Mora. He's the fighter. I'm the writer. On location this week, on the road. I am on the East Coast on an assignment. Sergio is back in Los Angeles, recovering, as he just said, from his vacation. You are the only person I've ever met that needs multiple days and another trip to recover from his vacation.
Well, listen, a trip to Hawaii sounds great, but when you got young kids, and you're going to discover this, Chris Mannix, when you got young kids, you're a lot of things, but a man, enjoying his vacation. You're an Uber driver, you're a host, you're a lifeguard, you're setting plans, you're paying for things, and of course, kids are never happy. So it's a stressful vacation in a beautiful setting, a beautiful place in Hawaii, but you're still, your shoulders are burdened with responsibility. You're going to find this out.
Okay. You looked real burdened when you sent me that video on the golf course. You looked real burdened when I saw the video of you on the beach with your former boxing coach, Coach John. You look real burdened when you were at the University of Hawaii graduation. You looked, I got to tell you, you looked really stressed out in those videos that I saw from you this past week.
You should see me without a shirt. I have a beautiful golden tan too, but all right, let's keep it on. Let's go.
All right. We got a lot to get into this week. The Manny Pacquiao Mario Barrio fight that is official. We're going to get into that. Boots Ennis has apparently narrowed his decision down for his next fight to two, and it includes multiple weight classes. Johnny Fisher, we're going to talk about his future, and Josh Taylor. He is bouncing back this weekend in a domestic fight. We'll see what the future of Josh Taylor is. But I want to start with Canelo Alvarez, Sergio. Bob Arum, the longtime boxing promoter, boxing Hall of Famer, he said in an interview this week that he looks at Canelo a lot differently than he once did. Canelo at one point was an elite pound for pound talent, a take on all comers type of guy. Now, Bob says he looks at Canelo as more of a businessman. Now, this is not an original take. A lot of people have been saying stuff similar since Canelo decided not to take a fight against David Benavidez. But what do you think? Is Canelo right now a boxer or is he a businessman?
I would agree with Bob Arum. I think he's more of a businessman than a boxer, but that's what happens when you're a pay-per-view star. I mean, if you look back at all the big stars, I mean, if I go back to Mike Tyson in the 90s when he got out of jail, he was selective with his opponents. Oscar De La Hoya, in between the monsters that he fought, he had guys like, David Kamau and Patrick Carpentier and many others. So I just think Canelo's taking a page from that book. There's still solid names on the resume. So when you look at the name, 20 years from now, you're just going to see an undefeated record and the fact that he was a title holder in the opponents that Canelo has. They're still former champions or champions with excellent resumes. And yeah, they're calculated risks now. But whenever you're that long in the tooth like Canelo, with over, he's 35 years old with well over 65 fights as a professional. I just think he earned that right. He earned that right to be picking and choosing whoever he wants to fight at this stage of his career. And if selected right in the right areas on the right date, at the right time, I think fans are going to support him. Fans are always going to support stars, pay-per-view stars, and they always will because it's a rite of passage that these fighters get.
Yeah, I think earned is the operative word there. And I think fighters that have accomplished what Canelo has accomplished have earned the right to be selective with their opponents. And like you said, it's not an original career strategy. I mean, we saw it very recently with Floyd Mayweather, who also earned the right to pick and choose who he fought. I mean, Floyd, when he was Pretty Boy, was one of the best fighters of that era. He pivots to Money Mayweather, and he still took some big fights, most notably the big one against Oscar De La Hoya and later against Manny Pacquiao. But he was definitely more selective. People were criticizing a little bit, but he had earned the right to do that in part because no matter who he fought, he was still able to register incredible paydays. So he could afford to be taking low risk, really high reward types of fights. And that's exactly what Canelo Alvarez is doing. I mean, Canelo, go back to the early years. I mean, he fought Mayweather back in 2013. He fought Erislandy Lara when Lara was a killer, or at least a tough fighter at that point. He fought Gennady Golovkin when Golovkin was close to his very best. Fought him 3 times, in fact. I mean, moved up, fought Bivol. Bivol was a pound for pound type of guy. So he's earned the right to be judicious with his opponent's selection. The question though is like, when these pound for pound lists come out, should we still have Canelo Alvarez on it? Most lists, including my most recent one, have him still in the top 10. I do think it's fair to ask Sergio, after the performance against William School, is Canelo still a pound for pound top 10 fighter? I think I'd still make him as the number 1 guy in the 168 pound division, but is he still in your mind a guy that should be ranked in the top 10?
Absolutely. I mean, look, going back on what you were just talking about with the first question, I think whenever you're a pay-per-view star, you get that star seniority. So just seniority keeps you in the top 10 and keeps you as a pay-per-view star and one of the main attractions. I could still fight all over the world against BC level guys and still be an attraction. So yeah, Canelo's still that. And of course, he's still in the top 10 pound for pound. You have to take out what number 9 or number 10. I don't care who you have at your top 10. And it's always bad anytime I see Tank Davis at the top of that list. So you take out Tank.
For the 900th time, just for the 900th time.
No,
Tank Davis is
you
not in my
always
top 10.
have Tank Davis on your top 10. That's ridiculous. So you take out Tank Davis and you put out a legend and a star and a pay-per-view attraction like Canelo Alvarez.
I don't have Tank Davis in my top 10. we keep doing this. We keep doing this over and over again. I do not have Tank Davis in my top 10. When you get back to the back half of the top 10, you're talking about guys like Junto Nakatani, Shakur Stevenson, Devin Haney before the Ryan Garcia fight was worthy of being inclusion on that list. I mean, I've got Canelo right in the middle right now. I do think I'd drop him down. And if I'm being honest, I'll probably give some serious consideration to dropping him out because I'll just put straight direct question.
Blasphemy. Boxing,
okay,
blasphemy, Chris
Sergio,
Mannix.
let me ask you this.
Drop still the number 1 pound for pound star in boxing. I don't care if he's still, he's at the end of his career. We all know that he's already lost a step and plenty of punches, but he's still an attraction. Anytime you carry that burden, that pay-per-view burden where you're still a star, you're still packing arenas, you're still getting paid the biggest money in the sport, you have to squeeze them in. I'm sorry, Junto Nakatani. I know this is boxing and it goes skills, but you also carry the burden of being a star and carrying the sport. And you got to take out guys in the top 10 because of Canelo and make way for a guy like that simply on seniority, Chris Mannix. That's it. You know a lot about seniority and nepotism, so you should know.
Okay. All right. We're doing the nepotism thing again. And we're playing the greatest hits. Seniority too, old man. Right now. We're playing the Sergio Mora greatest hits. I love it. I would look, again, I have to think longer about it. Right now, I have him at number 5. I would drop him down that list after the Williams School performance. Do I have him still above the likes of David Benavidez, who was on my list last time? Probably until Benavidez beats another fighter of a top caliber, in which case he'd probably move ahead of him. Nakatani, right there, because Nakatani's a really damn good fighter. Bam Rodriguez, probably ahead of him right now, I think, on the pound-for-pound list. So I do think he's inching closer to being off that list. But right now, if I had to make my list in this immediate moment, I'd probably put him still inside that top 10. All right, let's talk about Manny Pacquiao. The fight between Manny Pacquiao and Mario Barrios is now official. July 19th on pay-per-view in Las Vegas. We saw video this week, Sergio, of Manny Pacquiao back at Wild Card, like he's never left, ready to go again, working with Freddie Roach. I feel like I'm back in 2010, the Wayback Machine. Pacquiao looked pretty good in some of the videos that I saw, like he wasn't in horrible shape, but he is 46 years old going up against a guy that is more than a decade younger than him in Mario Barrios. Bob Arum, in the same interview, he said that he was worried about Manny Pacquiao. This is a guy that promoted Pacquiao for most of his professional career, not promoting this fight against Barrios, but he said he is concerned for Pacquiao going into this fight. Do you have concerns about Pacquiao going in?
No, I don't have concerns. And look, I can post a video and look good for 10 seconds right now. Just like when Mike Tyson looked like a killer when he was promoting the Jake Paul fight. You writers and you guys with the non-boxing, I need to get those videos out of your head because they're just clips. Anyone could look good for that long. I can train you to look good for 10 seconds. There'll be pretty hard, but I can train you to look good for 10 seconds on video. So don't worry about that. I look, Bob Arum knows what he's talking about because it's the legs that's going to get to Pacquiao, not the power, not the explosive speed. It in front of a heavy bag. But whenever you're in front of opponent and he's going to be moving around, it's the legs that are going to fail you. They're going to betray you. The power's not going to betray you. That lasts until the very end. His punch resistance, that's not going to betray him because that never goes. Speed, and it's because you rely on your legs. That's the thing that goes at age. So at 46 years old, Manny Pacquiao is not going to have zero legs. There's a man that made a career with going in and out. He's going to have to evolve his style to an older man style, but I don't think he's going to be at danger to risk his health or anything like that, especially against a Mario Barrios, because Pacquiao knows how to fight. Whenever you know how to fight, you know how to survive. You know how to slow things down. You know how to not take risks. Pacquiao only got knocked out 3 times in 72 fights. 2 of those were in the 90s before you and I even knew him. And one time against Marquez, it was a one-punch knockout. Those really don't take away from your career and your longevity. It was one-punch knockouts. It's the beatdowns over a long period of time, for 10, 12, 11, 11 rounds. Those are the ones that catch up to you. Those are the ones that actually slow you down and are detrimental to your health. One-punch knockouts, you can get past those. Early knockouts that are way back in the rearview mirror, you can forget those. Pacquiao's going to be just fine against Mario Barrios.
Okay, so as usual, you're all over the place with that one. So you're not worried about Pacquiao physically,
No,
is what you're saying.
no,
Okay.
I am not.
But you don't put any credence into the videos that we saw or how Pacquiao looks right now. You don't think he's going to be competitive in this fight.
What does credence means? What's that? An old 70s band? CCR? I don't know what credence means. Give me another word. All right.
You don't think Pacquiao? Do you think Pacquiao is going to be competitive in this fight?
Yes, because like I said before the beginning of my statement, whenever you're a champion, especially a legend, you know how to slow things down. He's going to be just fine. He's going to be able to attack in certain spurts, and then he's going to hold back. He's going to be able to lean on opponents, walk opponents back. Even the intimidation of just being, Mario Barrios has never faced someone like Manny Pacquiao, a legend like this. He's faced really good champions, but not legends. Whenever you're in front of a legend, things are different. I fought Shane Mosley. Things were different when I seen Shane Mosley across the ring. I'm thinking, I'm actually going to fight Shane Mosley in the same ring Oscar De La Hoya fought him in the same venue. It blows your mind when you're in front of that type of greatness. So Mario Barrios is going to be a little intimidated, and that's going to buy him some rounds. So I think Manny Pacquiao is going to be just fine, Chris Maddox, just fine.
You're thinking, by the way, of Creedence Clearwater Revival.
There you go.
That's what you were thinking of there. I'm not worried about the health of Manny Pacquiao because he's not fighting a killer. I mean, Mario Barrios is a 140-pounder coming up, who in his last fight easily could have lost to Abel Ramos. That was not a good performance, and that was about a year ago. I am concerned, though, that Pacquiao is going to look horrible because he did not look good in his last fight against Yordenis Ugas. His last win came in 2019. The 2 exhibitions that he's been in, he has had a dad bod, a boxer's dad bod. He has not looked good. He's looked fleshy in these fights. I don't think you can just shake off that type of that type of layoff, come back after 4+ years, fight in a world title fight, even against a fighter as, pedestrian average of a champion as Mario Barrios. I still think he's going to look horrible. We've seen this, Sergio, whether it's Muhammad Ali against Larry Holmes, Sugar Ray Leonard against Hector Camacho, Mike Tyson against Jake Paul. When these guys come back and try to turn back the clock and do something special, occasionally they're able to do it. Occasionally we get a guy that pulls off a miracle. But more often than not, they get embarrassed, and we wonder what the hell they were doing there in the first place. Manny Pacquiao should not need to do something like this. He has made a small fortune in his professional boxing career. He has, presumably, a political career ahead of him back in the Philippines. I think we're going to get through this fight in mid-July. And I think we're going to be wondering, why did he do this? Because Mario Barrios is probably going to beat him like 9-3 or 10-2. I just think it's going to be an ugly affair, because we're going to think that Pacquiao is going to be the 2013 Pacquiao or even the 2019 Pacquiao that beat Keith Thurman. He's not going to be that. He's not going to be close to that. He is old. He's going to be slow. And I think this is going to be a very difficult fight for people to watch.
The audacity you have to call anyone a dad bod. I seen you without a shirt. You're a stepdad bod.
I'm not a professional fighter.
It doesn't matter, man. But listen, he is a legend. You talk about Manny Pacquiao, you put him up with the legends, with the names you just mentioned, the Sugar Ray Leonards, Muhammad Ali's, and the great fighters. It's the rite of passage, man. This is what happens to fighters, and we're fine with it. We're fine, being being alpha, being ahead of the pack for so long in the limelight, being a champion, being respected, being around for so long, and then finally in the end getting knocked out by a young buck. That's what happens to every great. And you can go way back to history. That's what you're gonna get, and it's not gonna change. Manny Pacquiao did the beating. He wasn't getting the beat down. He did the beating when he beat down Oscar de la Hoya, another legend. You didn't mention that one there. He made Oscar de la Hoya resign in the corner, and then Manny Pacquiao had his moment in his
2008.
Now it's Manny Pacquiao's turn to face that. Every great champion, every great name faces that, where they're in charge for so long. It's hard for
But
fighter.
Sergio, that's your comp. Like you're
Yes,
saying.
it is.
But
Yes,
then,
it is.
Then you're
Because
saying that
only
Pacquiao.
a
Then in this argument, hold on. In this argument, Pacquiao is De La Hoya. What happened to De La Hoya in that fight?
Yeah. No, he got beat down, and he got beat to submission. But Sugar Ray Robinson got beat to submission at one time. Muhammad Ali got beat down into submission with Larry Holmes. Sugar Ray Leonard with Hector Camacho.
And we regret those fights. We regret those fights.
Say a rite of passage, man. This is what happens. Only a selected few, a very selected few, leave on top. I'm talking about Ricardo Lopez, Floyd Mayweather Jr., Andre Ward, Sergio Mora left on a win. But great names. You know what I'm talking about, Chris Mannix? Guys that have been so long in the game. It doesn't matter if they take one beating at the end of their career, because they already have no legs. They're doing it for the payday. They're doing it because they deserve that, and they have that right. I go out on my terms. And of course, there's flashes of ignorance saying I might still have a little left to come back, because you can't judge greatness. Look at Roberto Duran. Roberto Duran fought in 5 decades. Roberto Duran was fighting well into his 40s, man. You can't tell greatness what to do. And we're definitely not going to tell Pacquiao what to do if he wants to come back at 46 years old. He's going to be just fine.
I agree. You can't tell greatness what to do. I disagree with your name being on that list of
I just
greatness.
threw it out there to get a grimace from your ugly face.
But all the guys you mentioned in the fights that we're talking about, I bet Muhammad Ali years later regretted the fights with Larry Holmes and Leon Spinks. I bet if you asked Sugar Ray Leonard if he could do it all over again, he wouldn't fight Hector Camacho in 1997. Mike Tyson against Jake Paul was really hard to watch. I mean, yeah, they've got the right to do it, and there certainly is going to be an audience for it. I'm just telling you, when this is over, it's going to join that list of fights we wish we didn't see. Simple as that. Fights we wish that we didn't see. All right, let's talk about a fight that we do want to see, or fights that we do want to see. Boots Ennis is in the process of deciding who he is going to fight next. Unified champion at 147 pounds. His first option was to fight Brian Norman. Brian Norman, though, is ticketed to face Jin Sasaki over in Japan. Now it seems like Boots has two options, at least according to his promoter, Eddie Hearn. One is to face Teofimo Lopez, who has talked about coming up in weight to 147. The other is for Boots to move up to 154, where perhaps an immediate fight with a Virgil Ortiz or somebody inside the top 10 could be waiting for Boots. So put yourself in Boots Ennis' shoes, Sergio. What is the best option for him in his next fight?
Those are two options that, I'll be honest with you, only Boots can decide. I don't know how much he's struggling to make weight. He's a tall fighter, wide shoulders. He looked great against Stanionis. He didn't look like he struggled making weight, but we saw him at the weigh-in, Chris Mannix. We've seen how, not frail, but we've seen how skinny he looked. at the weigh-in. Stanionis looked like a fullback, like an NFL fullback. But come fight night, 24 hours later or less, Boots look huge. He makes Stanionis look small. That means that you're outgrowing your weight division. Whenever you're gaining that much weight, rehydrating that much weight, and looking that big, yeah, you're probably outgrowing it. But I think Boots still has the youth to keep, making that weight, especially if he felt right in his last fight and he definitely looked great. So I think he stays at 147. I think he should stay at 147 and wipe out the division, or at least try to wipe out the division and
Well, no,
fight
I mean that, but
Teofimo.
that's off the table, right? Like that's like Norman is done for a while. We just talked about Mario Barrios. That's done for a while. Like those fights are
Teofimo.
probably.
That's fine. Well
I
then,
mean, it's really Teofimo is what it comes
Well
down
then,
to.
well then, yeah, I'll
Teofimo.
be just fine with that because Teofimo is a lightweight coming up to welterweight, so he's not fighting a legitimate 147 pounder. Boots is a legit big 147 pounder, so I think he'll be just fine against Teofimo. Teofimo is not a knockout puncher whenever he's fighting guys that are high fight IQ that can move around the ring, and especially at 147, and especially against a pound for pound talent or almost a pound for pound talent in Boots Ennis. So I think stay at 147. Teofimo is a perfect matchup and a a big fight in the East Coast.
Yeah, if Turkey Al Sheikh is willing to put up a pile of money for Boots to fight Teofimo, I would run towards that if I'm Boots Ennis. There's been a surge of people in the boxing industry that believe that Teofimo can beat Boots, led by our friend Tim
Probably.
Bradley. Love Tim Bradley. Respect his boxing mind. No shot. No shot. Like Teofimo is a great fighter, 140 pounds, probably the best guy in the division. Would love to see him fight some of the top names there. Would still, as I talked about on our podcast, would love to see him face Devin Haney. But Boots Ennis and Boots Ennis is a different animal altogether. And Boots Ennis, without having that rehydration clause that he's been fighting under for recent fights, is a completely different type of fighter. I mean, you talked when we saw Boots Ennis, and you brought this up a couple of times. When we saw Boots Ennis at the weigh-in, he did not look that big. In fact, against Demontis Stanionis, they look kind of comparable in size. 24 hours later, without that IBF rehydration clause hanging over his head, the IBF rehydration goes away when you're in a unification fight. Without that rehydration, Boots looked like a super middleweight. He was a big guy, and he had the speed, the power, and the skills to go along with it. Demontis Stanionis is a good fighter, and he got rolled. Like, Teofimo might have more success, maybe better footwork than Stanionis. He's probably not going to engage as much as Stanionis, but Teofimo's not beating Boots Ennis at 147. I'm sorry. That is not a win I think Teofimo can get. So if I'm Boots, I see the appeal of going up in weight, not having to shrink down to 47. But given that he is now a unified champion and he never has to deal with that rehydration clause ever again, going there one more time, fighting Teofimo, getting a big paycheck, and then going up to 154, that to me makes the most sense.
Look, man, in defense of my fellow Southern California fighter and Timothy Bradley, I know what he's seen. I know what he's seen. He maybe a little bit too energetic and bombastic in describing, but I know what he's seen. The thing about seeing fighters up close, and Tim Bradley has been there watching Teofimo from beginning, middle, and end up close. You get to see the little things that a lot of people watching on television don't see. So in his defense, I see what Tim Bradley sees. But on the flip side of that, we've been calling Boots Ennis up close and personal. We've been calling a lot of fights up close and personal. And yeah, we feel the exact same way on this side. Would I like to see that fight? Absolutely. I just think Boots, there's size matters. And I think Boots after the rehydration, will be a different fighter and Teofimo will have issues. And I think the world of Teofimo, but I think 147 is maybe a little bit too much for his height. He's a wide guy. He's like a fullback, Teofimo. He's a wide guy. He's very athletic. He's strong, but his power hasn't really carried over, at 140 or 140 plus. So I just don't think it's a good idea to be fighting on 147.
I don't think it's a bad idea to go to 47. I just don't
Not
think in your
against that best, not
yeah,
against a unified
in your
champion.
first fight in the weight class, I think it's a big risk to take to go up against somebody like Boots Ennis who could put a pretty good beating on you if you're not careful. I'd love to see Teofimo stay at 140. You've got the Matias
Agreed.
The Matias against Puello fight happening this summer. That's a belt that's going to be on the line. We're going to be in New York in June. Richardson Hitchens against Teofimo, I think, is a terrific fight in New York City. Like, those make more sense for Teofimo. But if Turkey is out there saying, hey, I'm going to back up the Brinks truck for this particular fight, if I'm Boots Ennis, I'm taking it. No question about that. I want to get your take on a fight that we saw this past weekend. Johnny Fisher, popular fighter over in London, the Romford Bull. He gets knocked out by Dave Allen. Now, this was a rematch of a controversial decision win that Johnny Fisher had in Saudi Arabia late last year. Dave Allen kind of picked up right where he left off against Johnny Fisher. Took the fight to him, pounded him, knocked him down, and knocked him out. Eddie Hearn, Fisher's promoter, believes a trilogy fight is in order. Did say he wants to get Fisher some wins, get his confidence back in a couple of fights before taking on Dave Allen. But, Johnny Fisher's never been a guy that people looked at as a future heavyweight champion. Did we just see Johnny Fisher's career plateau? And should he go into a trilogy fight against Dave Allen sometime next year?
Yes, he should. If I'm Johnny Fisher and Team Johnny Fisher, yes, because he has nothing to lose now. He already lost. He lost 2 fights pretty much. I think he lost that first fight,
I agree.
but then he got knocked out. And it seems to be that 5th round that gets him in trouble. I mean, he got dropped in the first fight in the 5th round, then he got knocked out in the 5th round. So it's going to happen again. I just think Allen has his number. And even I was watching tape on Allen, and I was studying him, and they were saying that even in sparring, he had Fisher's number. It just happens, man. You have someone's number. Think Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder. No matter how great the trilogy was, or however people want to think about it, Fury still won every single fight. Wilder didn't win this fight. I think the exact same thing with Johnny Fisher here. He's going to make it another competitive fight. People would watch. It'll be a fun trilogy, but he's going to come out losing again, and most likely he'll get knocked out again. If he got knocked out in the last fight, he'll get knocked out even earlier this time around because they're too familiar with each other. And I just think Allen has his number.
Yeah, I think if you're Fisher, you want to age Dave Allen as much as you can before you get into the ring with him again. Like, Dave Allen is 32 years old. Before the Fisher fights, he had one foot out the door. Like, he wasn't looking at his career as, being the kind of career that could put him into world title contention. He still doesn't think he's going to be in world title contention, but he liked to fight on the British level. David Adelaide is out there for Dave Allen. If I'm Fisher, I go back to kind of this local circuit for a while. Keep selling tickets in your backyard. Keep putting together big knockouts and see if you can keep improving as a boxer. He's not a terrible boxer. But when you go up against a guy with a good chin and real power like Dave Allen has, you run into problems. So I don't mind the idea of a third fight, but it definitely shouldn't be in 2025. It might not even be in 2026. But you get to 2027.
That's where you're wrong. See, I got to interrupt you. This is where you're wrong. We're never going to hear Johnny Fisher again if he doesn't fight Allen. He's going to always be remembered for Allen. So might as well make it a trilogy, because this is what happens whenever you get knocked out. You're not going to be the same fighter, for one. I don't care how young you are. 2, there's chinks in his armor. He's not a second half fighter. He boxes well on the outside when he uses his reach and his range. But once he gets into the second half of the fight, and it's happened before the Allen fight, he starts getting caught with looping shots. I'm sorry to say, he's not a championship fighter. So this is going to be the peak of his career and earning capabilities. So I just think he should cash out right now. I'm sorry to say, Johnny Fisher, this is your peak, and you're going to forever be known for this trilogy. Make it happen, get paid, and that's just the way it is for some fighters.
No, I think we agree making it happen is the right thing to do. But like, if he goes back in against Dave Allen in 2 fights, he's going to get knocked out again. Like, maybe he gets knocked out again anyway, but I'd love to see Allen go up against David Adelaide, maybe win a British title, put something domestic on the line to make that fight a little bit bigger. And what Fisher has going for him is that he's popular, right? Like, he doesn't get stuck on undercards in the middle of nowhere. Like, he can headline small shows in his backyard and still turn a decent profit for.
I don't know, Mannix. No matter how popular you are, you lose your shine when you get knocked out. Coming off a loss like that, you got to get respect back. So I just think Allen's the way to go. That's personal.
Good.
Because You can't convince fans. You can't fool no matter how loyal your fan base is, you can't fool them. If you're coming off a split decision win where you should have lost and getting knocked out by the same guy, you need to go get your get back, man. Get your respect back, get your shine back. Then maybe you could still put butts in seats in your hometown and somewhere in that region. But if you're coming off two, bad performances or losses, nah, here the shine's off.
All right. Speaking of guys that have lost their shine, Josh Taylor, the former undisputed champion
Hey,
at 140 pounds. I like that segue. He is
yes.
back this weekend in Glasgow fighting Eko Asuman, who is a good fighter, 21-1, domestic level type of fight. This is the first fight for Taylor since his loss to Jack Catterall back in May of 2025. First fight for Taylor also at 147 pounds. So, Sergio, Taylor's not exactly an old man, 34 years old, still maybe some gas in that tank, new weight class. Do you think that Josh Taylor can make a run at welterweight?
Speaking of losing their shine or their potency or their whirlwind, like the Tartan tornado, that's my segue. Yes, I think his inactivity has not ruined his career, not killed his career, but out of all that potential greatness that he had after knocking out Ramirez, it just seems the shine is not there, man. The the inactivity has killed him, man. It happens to fighters sometimes when they're making a lot of money. I don't know how much money Josh Taylor's been making, but in the last 5 years to fight once a year when you're at one point, he was pound for pound. At one point, he cracked the top 10 pound for pound and was the undisputed champion. He should have been busy. He should have been fighting all over the world. He should have been bigger against the biggest possible names on the biggest possible stages, but he wasn't because of whatever management or promotion or the fact that he was happy fighting once a year. Whatever it is, I just don't think he's going to be I don't think he's going to be the same Josh Taylor we saw 5 years ago. It's just the way it is, man. At this point of his career, at this age, the money he's made, I think he's content with what he's accomplished, and it's been great. I mean, it's been great, undisputed. To have that on your resume is incredible. I just don't think he's going to get that number one spot back, and especially at 147.
Well, first of all, this move to 147 is long overdue. Like, in reality, Josh Taylor should have moved up to 147 after that controversial decision win over Catterall back in 2022. Like, he was having trouble making weight back then. He is a tall guy, and shrinking down to 140 pounds, as he'd done for years, was clearly giving him problems as he got into his early 30s. Like, the decision to fight Teofimo Lopez, I get it. There's money there, but that was a mistake. Rematching with Jack Catterall at 140, that was a mistake. Like, he should have been up at 147 probably as early as 2023 and maybe giving himself some time to build some momentum. I do think he can put himself into the world title picture for two reasons. Number one, I don't think he looked horrible against Jack Catterall. It wasn't his very best, but he had his moments in that rematch against Catterall that made me believe that there was a little bit left in that gas tank. And I think that gas tank will be filled up a little bit more, getting that extra 7 pounds onto his frame. The other reason is, what is there at 147 once Boots Ennis leaves the division? Like, who are the names at 47? Who are the stars at 47? Brian Norman, good young fighter, not a star yet. Mario Barrios, I don't know. Conor Benn, if he goes back down to 147 at some point. Like, there are good fights that can be made for Josh Taylor, that if he looks good in this coming fight this weekend, that you might say, all right, maybe he can beat that guy. I mean, the Conor Benn fight to me makes the most sense, right? If Taylor winds up winning this fight, if Conor Benn doesn't do the rematch with Chris Eubank Jr., well, maybe you do a Josh Taylor versus Conor Benn fight for an interim belt or something at 147 pounds. I don't know. I'm not bullish on the idea of Josh Taylor becoming a champion at 147, but I do think this is the right weight class for him to be in. Better late than never. And I think that given what I saw from him against Catterall, there might be a little bit left in the tank. Now, we'll learn a lot in this fight against Asuman on Saturday. Like, he's fighting a domestic level guy who has a loss to Harry Scarf on his resume. So if Taylor struggles or if he loses, that's a wrap. Career is over. But if he gets a convincing win, either by decision or by knockout, I think he'll put himself back in the picture pretty fast.
I agree, especially the fact that he's a tall fighter. He's a 5'10", almost 5'11". He's tall, so he should have probably moved up a long time ago. He can carry that weight and distribute it properly. I think he's going to be just fine against Isamau, or however you say this kid's name, Econ. He's durable. He's a good fighter, but you said it, domestic level. I don't think he's going to be on the undisputed level like Josh Taylor. I think Taylor makes an example out of him, and he's gonna be just fine at welterweight. Even though there's no names, he can make the name. I mean, anytime you have a division that's always red hot, and then all the stars leave, like middleweight nowadays. Middleweight right now, no one. There's no stars at middleweight, but you can become slowly the champion, slowly the star. Bring other names from other divisions there. Josh Taylor is a name, an international recognized former undisputed champion. Moving up in weight against no monsters around you, you can become the monster. You can become the head honcho there, and pick off guys. Stay relevant, stay active. That's the main thing Taylor needs to do. Stay active against title holders. It doesn't matter if they're not big names. Just dominate the division, become a two division world champion, and then that's how you remain relevant and longevity on your side.
Ekau is the opponent's name. Econ is the class that you failed in high school.
And Akon is the rap artist you never heard of, Mr. Boston.
Locked up, baby, just like you were.
That's right.